Most Viking hoards are silver. This one was different. When the Danish National Museum's Conservation Lab ran neutron activation analysis on a gold arm ring from a 10th century cache, they found something that shouldn't exist: New World gold impurities, specifically platinum group metals with isotopic ratios matching only one place: the Esmeraldas River in Ecuador. Gold that wouldn't reach Europe for another 500 years after Columbus. Either their dating was wrong by half a millennium, or the Vikings reached South America centuries before anyone thought possible. The analysis was conducted by Dr. Freya Nielsen, who brought the results to me because she knew my specialty: anomalous archaeological metallurgy. "The gold is pre-Columbian South American," she said, her voice tense. "But the craftsmanship is Norse. The runes say, for valiant service in the Jomsvikings." The Jomsvikings, the legendary mercenary brotherhood that served any lord who paid in silver and gold. But South American gold? That rewrote history. The hunt for the $250 million Jomsviking transatlantic gold began with an elemental fingerprint that defied chronology. Phase 1, the anomalous artifact. The arm ring was part of a hoard found in 2018 on Bornholm Island, Denmark. Standard Viking age, except for the gold's composition. Museum records showed it was purchased in 1902 from a collector who claimed it came from a Greenlandic Inuit trader. Greenland, the Viking settlement that vanished. If Vikings had South American gold, Greenland was the logical stepping stone. Freya and I travelled to the National Archives of Iceland in Reykjavik, in the Grenlandinga saga of the Greenlanders. There's a curious passage often dismissed as fantasy. Thorvald Eiríksson sailed west from Vinland until he found a land where rivers ran golden. He traded iron for the yellow metal with dark-skinned people who wore gold in their noses. But the winter was without night, and the sun wrong in the sky, so they returned. Winter without night. That's the southern hemisphere summer. Sun wrong in the sky. The sun moving north to south instead of east to west at those latitudes. Thorvald had crossed the equator, but the saga gave no coordinates, just, he marked the place with the Jomsvikings beacon, 3 stones in the sea, where only the midnight sun touches them. Phase 2, the rival interpretations. Our research attracted attention. The academic traditionalists, led by Professor Magnus Thorsen of Oslo, who argued the gold analysis was flawed. Vikings never crossed the equator. The gold must be African, misidentified. The independent researchers, a group of retired naval officers and amateur historians using satellite imagery to search for Norse artifacts in the Caribbean. The Ecuadorian government, who quietly sent an archaeologist, Dr. Carlos Mendez, to discuss possible cultural patrimony issues. Thorsen published a paper attacking our methods. Mendez offered collaboration. If Vikings took gold from my ancestors, I want to know how. And perhaps we can find what they left behind. We formed an uneasy alliance. Mendez had access to something we didn't. Pre-Columbian trade records from the Esmeraldas culture, which mentioned pale-bearded men from the Sunrise Sea trading hard metal that does not bend for gold around 1000 AD. Phase 3, the nautical cipher. The clue was nautical, 3 stones in the sea where only the midnight sun touches them. At the Arctic Circle, the midnight sun touches everything, but in the south, the Antarctic Circle has midnight sun in December, but 3 stones in the sea suggested a triangulation point. Viking navigation used Steinavur, stone beacons, on shorelines as markers. 3 stones forming a line pointed to something. Mendez had a theory. What if it's not in the south but seen from the south? The midnight sun touches them, could mean they are only visible when the sun is at its lowest northern point. The winter solstice, seen from south of the equator. We mapped Viking navigation routes from Greenland. If they followed the Labrador Current south, then caught the North Atlantic Current, they'd reach the Caribbean. From there, the Guyana Current flows directly to northeastern Brazil. Satellite imagery of Brazil's coast revealed an anomaly. 3 small islands off São Luís that form a perfect straight line pointing inland. Local fishermen called them as Tres Irmãs, the 3 sisters. And they aligned with the winter solstice sunset when viewed from the south. Phase 4. The cultural exchange. We explored the islands. On the central island, beneath dense vegetation, we found Norse-style stone foundations, not for buildings but for boat repair. And Viking artifacts, a broken bone comb, iron rivets, and most telling, a rune stone that read, "Here Thorvald wintered, traded with the gold people, left 10 men as surety, took gold for Jomsviking's pay. The beacon points to the meeting place." The runes were worn but readable, and they included a star chart. The position of Orion relative to the Southern Cross on the spring equinox, 1022 AD, according to astronomical dating. Mendez calculated the alignment. It pointed 150 kilometers inland, to the Serra das Andorinhas mountains, where the Esmeraldas culture had gold mines. We trekked inland with local guides. At the coordinates we found something extraordinary. A cave with Norse and indigenous art side by side. Viking runes and Esmeralda's petroglyphs on the same wall, telling the same story. A trading mission that lasted months. And at the cave's rear, a stone chest sealed with both a Norse padlock and Esmeralda's ceramic seals. The collaboration had been formal, respectful. Phase 5. The Joint Treasury. Opening the chest required both cultures' methods. The Norse lock picked with an iron key, we used a replica based on Viking finds, and the ceramic seal broken in the specific pattern shown in Esmeralda's art. Inside, gold ingots stamped with both Norse runes, Jomsvikingar, and Esmeralda's symbols, Saqi, the people's name. But more importantly, records. Norse accounts in runic script detailing amounts taken, goods traded, iron tools, wool cloth, and promises to return. Esmeralda's quipu, knotted string records, showing equivalent exchanges. A treaty carved on a gold sheet in both languages. We, the Jomsvikings, and we, the Saqi people, agree. Gold for iron, fair measure. Hostages exchanged in goodwill. If we do not return in 5 years, the gold is forfeit. Our men live as their men. Their men live as ours. They'd exchanged people. Not as slaves, but as cultural ambassadors. 10 Vikings stayed with the Esmeraldas. 10 Esmeraldas returned to Greenland with the Vikings. A temporary exchange that apparently became permanent. The saga mentions Thorvald returning with dark-skinned crewmen who became great warriors. But the chest held only records. The gold itself was elsewhere. A final runic message. The gold waits where 2 worlds meet, in the ice that remembers fire, under the stone ship that never sails. Phase 6. The Greenland Connection. The ice that remembers fire could only be volcanic regions covered by ice. In Greenland, that meant the Disco Island area, with basaltic formations under glaciers. The stone ship that never sails. Norse stone ship settings, burial monuments shaped like ships. We flew to Greenland. At a known Viking site on Disco Island, we found a stone ship setting unusually large, 50 meters long. Ground-penetrating radar showed a void beneath its center. The Greenlandic government granted limited excavation. Beneath the central stones, we found a chamber lined with basalt blocks, and inside, the Jomsviking treasury, gold ingots from South America, now mixed with Norse gold arm rings, Frankish coins, Arabic dinars, the Jomsvikings' diverse payments, weapons from 4 continents, and most moving, grave goods for both Norse and Esmeralda's individuals, 2 cultures buried together. But the true discovery was a parchment in Latin, the language of record for international mercenaries. Account of the Jomsviking Brotherhood, Anno Domini 1045. Gold received from the southern land, 2,000 marks. Expenses. Payment to 300 warriors, ship maintenance, hostage maintenance. Balance held in reserve, 800 marks. This reserve is for the Brotherhood's future, to buy land when our wandering ends, to build a fortress where we serve no king but our own law. Until that day, it sleeps in the ship that goes nowhere, guarded by the ice and the memory of our southern brothers. They weren't hoarding, they were saving for retirement. The world's first mercenary pension fund. The transatlantic legacy. The discovery triggered international negotiations. Denmark claimed the Norse artifacts. Ecuador claimed the South American gold. Greenland claimed everything found on its soil. UNESCO mediated. The resolution, the gold remains in Greenland's new Museum of Arctic Cultures in Nuuk. displayed as a testament to early globalization. Replicas tour Denmark and Ecuador. DNA testing confirmed some Greenlandic Inuit have both Norse and Esmeralda's ancestry, the hostage's legacy. Valuation: South American Norse gold, 800 marks, pounds from 180 kilo, $10 million bullion value. Historical value of rewriting transatlantic history, priceless. Cultural value of the first European-American treaty, incalculable. Insured total for the collection, $250 million. For me, the treasure wasn't the gold. It was the revelation that globalization began 500 years earlier than we thought, not as conquest, but as respectful exchange. The Vikings didn't raid South America, they traded. And they left a record of that trade not as victors, but as partners. Sometimes history's greatest discoveries aren't about what was taken, but about what was shared. The Vikings and the Esmeraldas didn't just exchange gold for iron. They exchanged people, knowledge, and trust, and they buried that trust in ice and stone, where it waited a millennium for us to find not evidence of plunder, but proof of partnership across oceans and cultures. The real treasure is knowing that first contact between Europe and the Americas wasn't Columbus's violent conquest, but Thorvald's careful trade. And that memory, preserved in gold and parchment, is more valuable than all the bullion in both hemispheres.